Okay, we're rocking here. So this is Lou Martin, my buddy Jonathan Green, who, honest to God, this is our first moments chatting, but we're just knowing that spirit's at work in our lives here, and Jonathan's being very brave, and we thought we'd record this and see if we'd like to share this with the world. So you're talking about Zen mind, beginner's mind, and starting over, and 2020. Take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so I was just sharing my experience of 2020, in a sense that I feel that kind of my ego self and kind of my understanding of kind of like from the collective of how a new year should begin,
Right.
of, getting clear and kind of starting with momentum and all of these kind of things. For
Yeah.
me personally, all of that has gone out of the window. And I've found myself in a place of real presence,
Right.
in a sense of kind of coming into the new year and almost being invited to go back to asking these questions of who am I and what am I called to do, and throughout the last, I don't know, two months, what I found is that I just haven't been naturally driven to do all of the things that I was doing before, which is, which it's just, it's great. It's a really cool space to be in, because it's like for the first time ever, for the first time in a long time, I'm allowing myself not to be Jonathan Green, meditation teacher, Jonathan Green X, Jonathan Green this. I'm here.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I can relate, my friend. It's I just feel the phrase to me is driven to our core.
Mm,
And I feel like everyone is just really, as you said, being asked needing to ask ourselves these very deep questions. What do I believe? How deeply do I believe it? Is it true for me now? What part of myself am I living from? Am I in integrity? Am I in, my heart with this? Am I on purpose? Really deep stuff. And it's very humbling.
mm.
Yeah.
Humbling.
Humbling.
That is the word.
Yeah.
That is the word. Humbling for
Yeah.
sure.
My guides say the choice is simple: humility or humiliation.
Mm,
So we got to let go of what doesn't serve us and keep walking forward.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. And I feel that there's a real kind of willingness, like, or there's a call for a willingness.
There you go. I agree with that. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
because it's like, it's almost like peeling back the layers, and when you're peeling back the layers, like for me, it's kind of had this kind of raw kind of sense, or this kind of, yeah, the sensitivity of not having the shell,
Right. Right.
the snake shedding its skin.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
uh,
Peeling the onion.
yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful, because it's like almost in that, like, because it's not an in-between stage, because it's like, it's not like you're leading onto something else. You're just there in that kind of place of surrender, in that place of sensitivity, that place of vulnerability. But yeah, it's
Yeah. Well, I'm just thrilled, man. I'm not the only one climbing the walls here. I appreciate some company trying to figure out what's next and how to make it happen and how to make it welcome.
yeah. Tell me a little bit more about where you're at, and kind of what you've been experiencing.
Sure, sure. Well, it's like you say, the momentum's not there, and I have to keep the feeling is I need to keep kind of touching, the deepest place in myself. Like I'm meditating off and on all day now, and this is what I find is the only way I can get through chaos and crisis is just keep touching back on my connection to spirit, and letting go and, you know, trying to see things more clearly. I loved what you said, Jonathan, about, you know, just being present with it and looking at it as a gift, which is always so important. I mean, I have a lot of ideas right now, and Joanne sends her love, and we're working on some great stuff together, and that's one of the great blessings of my life, that we're
Amazing,
yeah, having so much support for each other and with each other. But yeah, it's a bit of a cloudy, muddy time, I'd say, in general.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And I feel that, like, for anyone that watches this, I feel that that kind of that question of like, how are you listening, or how are you serving yourself in this time? How are you, like, choosing to respond? Um, like, these questions are so, they're important. How are you choosing to respond? Because because it can be, you know, no matter where you are on your journey, I feel that our experiences are, they're very personal, they're very intimate to our life story. Um, I think I said something at the end of last year, that it's all about you and it's not about you at the same time. Um,
the great paradox. The great paradox. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, very, very much so. For me, what it means is almost like, no matter where you are on your journey, it's kind of, you always have the opportunity to either respond or react in any
sure.
season. And our choice to respond, like, no matter what we see and feel in that moment, like, it always, from my understanding, it always serves us, like, and serves the highest good. Like, when we're able to respond
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the moment, it kind of, it allows us to kind of almost have this, even though we might not see it in the moment, almost like a fast track through that season, or using that, allowing that to be a nourishing, whatever that experience is, allowing that to be
yeah,
nourishing.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, my friend. You know, because I just glanced at your page. There you go. You're doing all this heart, yeah, opening. That's what I was going to say. You really strike me as someone who really comes from your heart. You have a lot of compassion, a lot of tolerance, a lot of faith, a lot of presence with your practice, and you really know how to hold that space. You know, in your work and in your life. Is that your experience generally? That you have a
yeah,
pretty grounded.
I feel generally so. I feel like, probably what is my what has been my greatest strength, per se, is a constant willingness to return to truth.
Great.
So I would definitely be lying if I had said that, I don't have moments where, I feel out of alignment, or I feel like I'm not coming from my heart, or I feel like I'm not coming from a place of presence. But
Sure. Sure.
I feel, I feel that natural, that, like, a natural impulse to return to truth, to seek
Mm.
truth, to come back to the heart, to come back to that place. I feel I remember Will Smith saying something. He had,
Yeah.
his first album, he got like a Grammy or something for it. He got an award for it, and it was
It-
called Home.
okay.
And he said that, like, he says something along the lines of, kind of, what his biggest motivation, his biggest drive was, you know, no matter kind of where he was at in this creation process, or where he was at in his life, he was saying the importance of having a place that you can call home. And he was talking about an internal place within yourself that you can call home. And
Yes.
I think that that place of truth and presence, um, and, like, yeah, and coming from the heart, is my place of home. Do I leave home? Yes,
Sure.
I definitely do. But like the prodigal son, I return, and I tend to learn some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lessons along the way.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that.
Yeah, gorgeous. No, I love it, man.
Hi.
Yeah, so let me dig in a little bit to your story here, if I can.
Yeah.
When did you get on this path, and you know, talk a little bit about meditation and any experiences that really, shifted you into this deep connection here.
Yeah, so my roots and foundation are in Christianity. So I kind of grew up in the church and left the church and went back to the church and left the church and went back to the church. And it wasn't until like some point in my late teens, early 20s that I kind of really began to look for the spirit in religion and connect to kind of like the spirit in religion and look beyond kind of like the rules and really look to kind of,
In your late
yeah,
teens.
connect to like the power in it.
Yeah. Wow.
And as with many, I went through some quite like turbulent times in my early 20s, like with it was more what I described at the time as like an identity crisis, or like a shattering of the ego.
Right.
I was a young father that was running a sales company, kind of like at almost like a pinnacle in my career, where I could see myself kind of being 25 and being able to like retire my mother and do all of
Wow.
these
Yeah.
amazing
Wow.
things, kind of like achieve these big goals, some of this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And
You
then
were
at
you were
2021, I
working your
had my
brains
son.
out.
Sorry.
You were working your brains out.
Yeah, I was kind
Yeah.
of. It was a very like American kind of company. It was an
Right.
American organization. It was very like rah, Wolf of Wall Street,
Yeah. Yeah.
working 18
Go,
hours a
go,
day, 6
go.
days a week, go get it kind of thing.
Okay, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear that.
I found myself in a place where I was breaking up with my son's mum. I'd left the organization I was in. I'd gone from earning, I don't know, a couple of £1,000s in a week to like working more hours running another company, but then not getting paid a penny, because like invoices were coming in like months and months late.
Hmm.
So like very, very quickly, I found myself as a young male with all these kind of different identities. I already kind of had like a Christian ego that said like, a man that can't provide for his family is worse than an infidel, worse than, an unbeliever, worse than someone that kind of, the,
Right.
worse than the lowest of the low. And I found myself kind of sleeping in my office, yeah, just kind of behind on everything and
Sure.
like really beating myself up for it.
Right.
Um, and what I found at that time was kind of like my tools were no longer working. So the motivational stuff kind of wasn't really helping me move forward. My kind of time of just scouring through the Bible for answers kind of wasn't giving me what I needed to kind of get through that season. So I think my curiosity bulb really kind of like turned on
Right.
in that season. I began this kind of journey of going within.
Right.
And
Wow.
there were a number of kind of synchronicities that happened like throughout that time that kind of like led me onto this path of uh, believing that what is behind all things is good, um, and is true and is one, um,
Beautiful.
and
That's
and
a that's a that's a mystical awakening, I'd say, you know.
yeah. And I feel like I feel in many ways I feel grateful to life for it, because it's like in these kind of moments of not being able to kind of see myself, it's like, yeah, it's life, this kind of interaction and this dance that's happening with what can sometimes be like an invisible dance partner, and all of a sudden you get swept up off your feet.
Right.
um,
Right.
and out of a very kind of, I don't know, challenging and sticky situation, or maybe still being in the same environment, but because you're in a different place in consciousness, you're in the
Yeah.
same place,
Yeah.
but in a whole different reality at the
Right.
same time as
Right. Right.
well.
Right. So you
Yeah.
had that awakening from within in the midst of your challenges.
Yeah, to be honest, it yeah, I feel like it happened in stages. So
Right.
so I feel like one of my biggest one of the biggest shifts that happened for me was kind of is I remember I'll try and make the story short, but it was
Right.
like I was doing some, this was some years later, I was like doing some charity fundraising, and I'd been sent to Bournemouth. So I was coming from Bedford to London, and I think I was at London about 4:30 in the morning, so it was like pitch black. And I was going to get a train to Bournemouth, it's like 100 miles away. And I was going past this building in Blackfriars, and the lights were on, and I was like, I walked past and I like looked in the window, and I walked past and looked in the window, walked past and looked. And I continued on my journey, like something caught my attention, and I continued 100 miles on my journey to Bournemouth. I didn't have the letter that I needed at the time to like go and fundraise at the place that I was going to go and fundraise in. So I had to go into the town to go to the library. So I was walking through the town centre, and as I was walking through the town centre, there was like a woman in the centre. She was stopping people and asking them questions. She asked me something along the lines of like, are you moving forward in your life? And are you fulfilled in your life? And I answered her questions, and then she like led me into this building, like behind some like alleyway, into some stairs and up
Is
into
this a
this small room.
Scientology?
I don't want to give away the story, but
All right. Sorry, I don't want to spoil any surprises. Yeah.
but I was
I'm
sitting
from
down.
LA, so I know that part of the story. But go on.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
sitting down with this woman in the room, and kind of like we got talking, and I, for whatever reason, I felt like I could just pour my whole heart out and tell her all of my worries and all of my woes, and be like, I used to be here, and now I'm struggling, and 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 it was literally like that. And
Right. Right.
after a while of discussion, she handed me this book. And yeah, you're right. The book was from the same organization that I'd walked past at 4:30 that morning.
Right.
So
Okay.
like, okay.
Dianetics.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I was like, okay. And I didn't have the money, but I bought the book. I somehow managed to do it. I bought the book and I read it in a few days. And there was something that was in that book that really caught my attention, and it was basically something called a stable datum. And it was saying that kind of like in these times of like confusion and turmoil, like you've got all these, like you're having loads of pieces of paper flowing around, and like you don't know which one to focus on. You've got loads of moving pieces of information. And it was saying that like when you're in a state of confusion, you can't do anything. You can't move forward. You're ineffective. You're not able to kind of make anything out of the situation. So it was saying like you need to create clarity in order to be able to move forward. So it said, in order to create clarity, you create something called a stable datum, which is where you pick one piece of information and like you make that like the truth, and then you're able to place everything else in reference to that situation, and then like you have like clarity. The paper is stopped and it's still.
Okay.
So then at the time I didn't know if kind of like God was like for me or if God was against me.
Right.
If if God wanted me to, not if he, I knew that God was for me, but I didn't know if he wanted me to kind of like thrive, and if he wanted me to grow and flourish, or he wanted me to kind of, I don't know, like walk the streets like Jesus, or like, you know, like there were so many like conflicting kind of ideologies in my mind at the time.
Right.
And I made the decision that it was God's will that I prospered.
Yes.
And my soul prospered, and that he loved me, and that he wanted the best for me.
Beautiful.
And then from that moment, what I found is there were so many different teachings and teachers that came into my life that shared that same message.
Right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting. I like that. That's a good story. Yeah, man. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, so however, thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. So however you got there, you know, and it's a great story. Everyone, you know, you got to a place, what I heard, you know, you found a place in yourself where you saw yourself as a good person, deserving of love and support and success. And, you're willing to be open to the universe to learn how that could happen for you, how you could create that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, did you want to say more about that?
No, I was going to say, and that was just the beginning, but then at the same time as well, I feel like there have been multiple beginnings.
Sure, sure.
Well, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, brother, you're a delight. You know, I'm happy we finally managed to get on here with each other. You're a very joyous being. You know, you really are big heart-centered teddy bear over there. So you've definitely got something going on that is that's wonderful. How can I just ask how people can find you and find your work, just to get that in our little.
Yeah, so you can find me on where can you find me? You can find me in most places as at Mr. Green Inspires, so on Instagram or on Facebook, and then also at jonathanwgreen.co.uk as well.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we kind of I chat with you all day, man. It's a joy. To talk a little bit about your own experience with meditation, and because you touched on that. And, you know, I know you do groups, and, you know, what meditation has meant for you.
Yeah. So like the breath is the elevator, the escalator, it's
Yeah.
like the transporter of our consciousness, like.
Right.
And
breath is consciousness is one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah.
Teacher named Muktananda.
Yeah. It's like liberation and bliss. I love that.
There you go. See, I didn't even know that. So there we go. Yeah.
So how did I begin meditating? I believe I began meditating in a time of depression. I connected to there was a local Buddhist, like he'd practiced Zen Buddhism for like 25 years in a monastery or something like that. And I went to his classes regularly. And I think the main thing that I connected to in mindfulness meditation was this concept of non-judgment, this like ability to be able to have a focal point and then be able to kind of drift off from that point and then come back and then bring yourself back to that focal point. Then not judging yourself and letting go of any stories along the way. And I feel that this is kind of like, I found this parallel with the life experience, in a sense of kind of, we often have, you know, a focal point, whether that be like our values or, you know, whatever that may be, or how we intend to be, or, you know, whatever.
Sure.
But then we find ourselves, you know, drifting off and kind of going somewhere else is kind of almost part of the human experience.
Sure.
And then it's almost like part of our job, or part of the narrative, is to come back to that focal point, but then not beat ourselves up a lot, not create other stories along the way.
Yeah. That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing, my friend. Yeah.
Very much so.
I struggle with that to this day. That's when I can get into that place of acceptance, you know, when I channel, you know, which is similar to the meditation, you know, that just lifts me up, like you described the escalator, and I'm high for a while afterwards. But of course, meditation, you know, makes us high because, you know, we're letting go of everything and we're coming back to the essence of things. So yeah, but you've been practicing for years?
Meditation, I feel like it's been just maybe 2, 3,
Really?
I'm flying 3 years, something like that.
Well, I'm very impressed with your level of understanding about that, because that's pretty powerful.
Like life is like, life. I feel like life has been good to me in that sense, in a sense of, I feel like what I needed, like, has kind of almost mirrored what I got. I feel like through the internal challenges that I've kind of experienced, I felt like the revelations have kind of almost like helped to support me through those times, and that's kind of of other people as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. This is very powerful what you're talking about, my friend. This is non-duality, you know. Yeah. And it's to be able to get into that state of presence, you know, as you say, with just acceptance and allowance and just being without, you know, yibber, 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 you know, is a great achievement. 2 or 3 years, man. My chapeau is off to you. That's brilliant.
um,
That's brilliant.
yeah. And I love this kind of this thing of just inviting people as much as possible to kind of connect to this part of themselves,
Right?
to create those windows of, like you said, like this through this time, like meditation has kind of been like your place of home, your constant place of visitation. And I feel that
Yeah.
just having this practice of kind of the the, the like life being almost like a sandwich, where you have, like, you know, your morning connecting to the breath, and you have your day, and there's obviously maybe bit of bread in there in the middle throughout the day anyway, and then kind of like the end of the day is kind of like you're returning to the breath. And like just that alone, whether it be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, I feel like is
Yeah.
a game changer.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah. Good phrase. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Brilliant. And Joe was saying you do a weekly meditation group somewhere.
yeah, so towards the end of last year, I kind of paused just before the Christmas period my meditation classes in Bedford, and they're yet to restart here for the
Okay.
new year.
Okay.
But we've had quite a few inquiries, so we'll be recommencing in February, and then
Good.
looking to kind of share some stuff online
Beautiful.
as well, just to create an online space for more people to be able to access that. Um, but
Beautiful.
what about yourself as a channeler? Like how did that? I don't know if that's a whole
Sure.
different conversation, or
Sure. Well, yeah, I'll give you my, no, that's lovely. Thank you for asking. You know, so I'm 62 over here this year. And
wonderful.
when I was the tender age of 30, I was going through my dark night of the soul. And I was working in a spiritual bookshop at the time. A friend gave me a piece of quartz crystal, and he said, if you meditate with this, you might raise this thing called the Kundalini energy in your spine. And long story short, the first time I did it, that's exactly what happened. And it was a game changer as well. It was, this energy just blew up inside of me, and all my chakras open, my head, my heart, all of it. And I was like, you know, hallelujah, you know, I'm free. And for about a week after that, I was not walking on planet Earth. You know, I was like really in a deeply altered state. And then, so over the next 5 years, I started studying with different channels, different people that were channeling, and started to learn about this time and the spiritual awakening that is happening on the planet right now, and the history and all of this. And then I took a class in channeling, and then I got activated by another channel. And so, you know, for me, it's the meditation and continuing to work, you know, on my own stuff is essential. And then that, you know, I get to clean my side of the glass, excuse me, is the way I like to put it. And then when the channel comes through, you know, it's through my conscious mind. There are many channels that are trance channels, like Esther Hicks and Abraham. She's a trance channel, but I'm still aware of what I'm saying while I'm saying it. So it's kind of a, you know, just a big adjustment. And then I, you know, get ideas and information for people that I wouldn't get normally. And, you know, it just amplifies my intuition. So that's been part of my medicine bag for the last 25 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And fun. I'll send you, we've got 2 ebooks right now. I'll send you our ebooks. I'm doing morning prayers Monday through Thursday, and I do
Every
sometimes.
day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. At from 9 to 9:30. And like yourself, I'm just trying to get geared up here for February, because January was just retreat, you know, there was nothing, there's no forward movement in January. It was all like, you know, you just sit still. And I'm also starting a spiritual study group, which I just did my first little preview. I'll send it to you if I haven't. Working with Abraham and Patricia Coda Robles and Oren and Da Ben and these kinds of channel teachers. And then I do some channeling myself there at the end of it. So I'm also wanting to do that daily, Monday through Thursday as well.
Okay. So do you kind of almost like dissect the teachings and the message that kind of come through? And
I just, I like to get jiggy with it. Isn't that Will Smith's thing?
No.
Right. And very cool guy, Will. Very, very cool guy. Amazing guy. So I'm just putting out in morning prayers and in the study group, Jonathan, I'm just putting out all the stuff that I'm inspired by and wanting to, introduce that to people. And the name I got yesterday for the study group is called Spiritual Empowerment Love Field. So that's SELF. And so it's the spiritual study group. And just create, you got it right away, create a vortex there that is, that people can tap into and we can build together.
Can you say that again? Spiritual empowerment.
Sure. Love field. You're good fun, my friend. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So
it's so good to hear you, and it's so good to have you express like where you've been at and what you've been going through. I feel like
thank you.
In this season again, like it's very much been one of retreat for me. So it's kind of it's good to kind of hear like almost like see that mirror kind of, and then also like it's so great to kind of like feel the energy of the work that kind of like you're putting out and your intention like on this time that you're here.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Well, I want to say also, brother, I think this year is just going to be the time of the teachers, and we're all getting a big upgrade. As we were saying here, the higher you want to go, the more grounded you need to be, is the phrase from my guides. And like we're saying in retreat, we're just clearing the clutter and getting real and getting in touch with who we really are and what we're about. And I just know that there's just going to be a huge wave of teachers and teachings flooding the planet this year. I think it's going to be amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And you're right there, man. You're right there on the cutting edge. So keep up the good work.
Expansion.
Yes.
Expansion.
Yes. Yes. More ha-ha, less boo-hoo.
For sure.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much. Let's do this again soon. And great to connect with you. And we can chitty chat anytime you like.
Absolute honor. Absolute honor.
Thank you, brother.
Best, my friend.
All right. We'll see you soon. Have a brilliant day. Thanks again. Wonderful to connect.
You too.
All right. Cheers.